On my 75th birthday I waited all day, not a single call, not from my son, not from my daughter, just the silence of a room that wasn't mine. That's the part that stung the most, not just the silence but the absence of something that once made sense. Birthdays used to mean cake, noise, cards with my name in clumsy handwriting, a hug that lingered, laughter that echoed. Now, just sterile walls. An overwatered plant wilting near the window, a nurse who poked her head in to ask if I wanted Jell-O. I didn't. My name's Frank, used to be Dad. Used to be Honey too back when my wife was alive, Mary. She passed away 22 years ago. Cancer, fast-moving. She was the warmth of this house, the glue in our family. After she left I tried my damned best to hold things together. I raised Mark and Laura by myself, worked double shifts, missed sleep, skipped meals, just so they'd never feel like they had less. I cheered at every little league game, sat through every dance recital. I was there, always there. That was my promise to them. But promises don't seem to travel in both directions, do they? Last year they told me I needed more care, that it was for my safety. I didn't argue. My knees ache, my hands shake, and the stairs in my old house had started to look like a mountain range. I understood. They'd brought me here with soft voices and fake smiles, said they'd visit all the time. We'll be in every weekend, Dad, we promise. I haven't seen Laura in 6 months. Mark, maybe 4. First month I kept count of how many days it had been since they last visited. I stopped after 90. Now I just count how many spoons I get with lunch. Funny, isn't it? You give your life to people, and all it takes is one moment for them to start living theirs without you. Some days I wonder if they think about me. If I ever cross their minds when they're tucking in their kids or sitting around the dinner table. Do they feel a pinch of guilt when they see an old man crossing the street? I used to think I'd die surrounded by family. Now I just hope someone notices when I go. But I wasn't as alone as they thought I was. Not for long. Laura's always been the practical one. Big job in some fancy law firm. Wears heels that probably cost more than I made in a week back when I was working construction. Mark's softer, less ambitious maybe, but always quick with a smile. Used to be anyway. I remember the day they brought me here like it happened 5 minutes ago. Just try it for a week, Dad. See how you like it, Laura had said, smiling that smile she reserves for courtroom lies and family meetings. We'll still be around all the time, it's just, we worry about you alone in that house, Mark added, shifting guiltily in his chair. They had already packed most of my things when I agreed, not because I wanted to, because I didn't want to be a burden, because I trusted them. The first week, they did come, brought muffins, took me outside to sit in the sun. They even helped decorate my room with photos. Me and Mary on our wedding day, baby pictures of Mark and Laura, and one of all of us at the lake the summer before Mary got sick. But after that week, nothing. Calls became texts. Then nothing. Muffins stopped coming. Sunlight was replaced with fluorescent hallways. And those photos? They began to feel like tiny tombstones on the wall. The place isn't bad really, not in the way you might imagine. The food's warm, the nurses smile, but the smiles don't reach their eyes. They say your name like it's written on a chart, not like it means anything. I hear the same jokes on loop in the common room. We eat at the same time, sit in the same chairs. One of the women, Ruth, talks to her dead husband during lunch. No one tells her to stop. Some of us talk to ourselves too. I became furniture in a room full of forgotten people. At night, I stare at the ceiling and wonder if this is it. If this beige room with its plastic flowers and the faint smell of disinfectant is how it ends. But then one day something changed. It was subtle at first. A soft knock at my door, followed by the voice of someone who didn't speak to me like I was already gone. Mind if I sit with you for a bit? She had kind eyes, young, maybe late 20s. Said her name was Emma. Just a volunteer, she said. But something in her voice felt familiar. Not like family, more like hope. I didn't know it then, but that knock was going to echo a lot louder than I expected. The holidays came, and with them, the quiet ache of being forgotten. From my window I watched cars pull into the parking lot. Sons with gifts, daughters with flowers, grandkids wobbling in with construction paper cards and squeals of joy. I watched it all unfold like I was behind a pane of glass, close enough to see, too far to touch. Ruth got a knitted sweater from her niece. Tom, across the hall, had a dozen cookies delivered from his daughter in Boston. Even Harold, who doesn't know what year it is half the time, got a signed baseball from his grandson. And me, nothing, again. That night, during medication rounds, I overheard a nurse outside my door. "Ward 4 billions, no family," she said casually, like she was reading from a list. Yeah, he keeps to himself mostly. I don't know why that phrase hit me like a slap, but it did. No family. Like I never had one. Like I didn't give my life to one. I waited until lights out, then sat in the dark for a long time, just breathing, just feeling it, all of it. What was it all for? I whispered. The overtime, the sacrifices, the nights I didn't sleep so they could, the dreams I buried so they could chase theirs, and for what? So I could be another name on a chart, another body in a bed? I cried that night, not because I was old, not because I was dying, but because I had been erased. Quietly, neatly, then came Emma. She knocked the next morning like she didn't know the world had ended. "Good morning, Mr. Frank," she chirped, carrying 2 cups of lukewarm coffee. "Mind if I join you today?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to stay angry, wrapped in it like a blanket, but something in her tone, soft but firm, cut through the fog. I nodded. Just once. She didn't fill the silence with noise, she just sat. Then, eventually, she asked questions. About my wife, my job, my kids. She actually listened. She remembered things I said. Days later she referenced a joke I'd made. I hadn't heard someone do that in years. Over the next few weeks she became routine, like coffee or pain in my knees. We played chess, she brought books. I told her stories from when I was young, and she didn't just listen, she laughed. She reacted like I mattered. Emma never looked at me like I was fading. She looked at me like I was still here. And in those brief borrowed hours, I felt like I was. Emma started bringing me a small notebook every Tuesday. "I figured you might have more stories," she'd say, handing it to me with a grin that didn't pity, it invited. At first I wrote just a few lines. About Mary. About the first time I held Mark in my arms. About Laura learning to ride a bike, her knobby knees scraped raw but smiling like she won the Tour de France. I didn't plan it, but the pages kept filling. I hadn't written anything, not since Mary passed. She used to read everything I scribbled down, even the corny stuff. When she was gone, the words left too, but Emma brought them back. She asked if she could record some of my stories on her phone. I figured, why not? I had nothing to lose. My voice was still mine, even if the world had stopped listening. What I didn't know was that she was uploading the recordings online, anonymously, under the title Stories from Ward 4 Billions. I only found out when she brought in a printed stack of comments one day. "Look, Frank, people are listening, really listening, hundreds of them, thousands, strangers pouring their hearts out in digital ink." This made me call my dad after 3 years. I cried on the train reading this. Whoever 4 Billions is, tell him he's not forgotten. I sat there, pages trembling in my hands, overwhelmed. I had been shouting into the void for so long, I forgot what it felt like to be heard. Emma just smiled and squeezed my hand. "Told you your life mattered." She became the family I hadn't known I needed. She'd bring her favorite books. I'd tell her which chapters made Mary cry. We talked about everything. Love, loss, grilled cheese sandwiches, the war, the best Sinatra song, "It's Summer Wind, Don't Argue." For the first time in years, I laughed and meant it. I smiled without faking it, but my phone stayed silent. No call from Mark, no email from Laura. My stories had gone viral, touched strangers across the world, yet my own children hadn't noticed. Still, I had Emma. She was a light in a place built on quiet exits, a granddaughter I never had, but now couldn't imagine not having. And yet, I could tell she was holding something back. There was a reason she came here, something she hadn't told me. It was a Thursday. Rain tapping on the windows like it had something urgent to say. I was halfway through a story about the first time I danced with Mary when the nurse popped her head in. "Mr. Frank, you have visitors." I froze. I hadn't heard those words in over a year. Laura came in first, her eyes sharp and scanning. Mark followed, his jaw set. Both looked like they hadn't slept. "What the hell is going on, Dad?" Laura demanded, skipping any greeting. "Why is your face all over the internet? Do you know people are mailing things here? Someone sent a quilt." "A quilt, Dad?" Mark held up a stack of letters and packages. "Who's Emma?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "And why is she acting like your family?" Before I could speak, Emma stepped into the doorway, calm, collected, a quiet strength behind her young eyes. "That would be me," she said gently. "And I'm here because of my grandfather, James Harlan." I blinked. That name hit me like thunder. "Jimmy?" I whispered. "Yes," she nodded. "He passed away last year. But before he died, he told me about a man who saved his life during the war. Said you dragged him through enemy fire, carried him 2 miles through the woods with a bullet in your leg. You never told anyone. You just left him at the medic tent and walked away before they could thank you." The room went silent. My children stared at me like they were looking at a stranger. "He wrote about you for years," Emma continued, voice shaking now. "Said if it weren't for you I wouldn't be here. He made me promise that if I ever found you, I'd thank you for him." She pulled a bundle of letters from her bag, yellowed, creased with time. "These are his. I found them in his attic after the funeral. That's how I knew your name. That's how I found this place. I couldn't breathe. For a moment it felt like the war was yesterday." Mark and Laura looked stunned, like the ground had shifted beneath them. "You knew our dad?" Mark asked, his voice suddenly small. "Better than you do," Emma said softly, not with spite, just truth. They stood there, holding their guilt like it weighed more than the packages in their arms. And for once, I didn't rush to comfort them. "She's been here every week," I said. She listened, she remembered, she made me feel like I still mattered. Laura wiped her eyes, ashamed. "We didn't know. You didn't ask," I replied. In that moment justice didn't come with anger, it came with clarity. I was no longer invisible. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to lash out at my children or scream about birthdays missed, calls that never came, or holidays spent alone. I needed peace, and I found it. Just not where I expected. It came in the form of a young woman with old letters and a promise. A girl with a notebook and a listening ear. A stranger who saw me before my own blood did. Emma helped me publish a small book. We titled it Stories from Ward 4 Billions. Just a collection of memories, really. But the world listened. The nursing home mailroom started overflowing. Letters came from Kansas, Canada, even Korea. People sent drawings, cards, photos of their grandfathers reading my stories aloud at the dinner table. One letter simply said, "You reminded me to love my dad while I still have him." For the first time in years, I felt like I had a legacy that reached beyond a living room filled with silence. My words meant something. I meant something. Mark and Laura came around more after that day. They brought flowers, offered to take me out for lunch, even talked about converting the guest room. I could tell they were trying, and I appreciated it, but I wasn't ready. Forgiveness takes time, I told them, and now, I finally have some joy left to spend it with. I didn't say it with bitterness, just honesty. I needed them to understand that love isn't just about biology, it's about presence. I still play chess with Emma on Fridays. She always lets me win and pretends like I don't notice. She reads me comments from the book's website while I sip weak coffee. Sometimes we laugh until my ribs ache, sometimes we sit in silence. And sometimes, she just holds my hand, and that's enough. The nursing home doesn't feel so cold anymore. Ruth crocheted me a bookmark. Tom says I'm famous now, and the nurse who once called me Ward 4 Billions. No family? She now brings my mail personally and always asks how I'm doing. Funny how things change when someone starts to matter again. I think about Mary a lot these days. I imagine her reading the book and shaking her head at my grammar. I like to believe she'd be proud of how I kept going, how I found light again. Through a promise, through a stranger, through stories. And maybe that's what we're all looking for in the end, not to be remembered by everyone, just to be truly heard by someone. So I'll leave you with this: if your parents stopped calling tomorrow, would you even notice?